Good morning, everyone. What a week, huh? All right. Well, look, we're really excited to talk to you this morning around scaling AI practices. My name is Swapnil Khopkar. I lead the AI apps GTM scale engines team. I'm going to be joined by the wonderful Kirill Kotlyarenko, who leads our AI partner strategy. And then we're going to have a great conversation with Mr. Charlie Doubek from Entity Data. Look, there are three things that we want to cover today. One is, what are the patterns of scale that we have been seeing? And these patterns have evolved dramatically over the last 2 years. How is Microsoft looking to package those learnings in terms of the right IP, technical IP, business IP, that all of you can use to build your AI practices and scale it? And then let's take a look at how one of our partners have put that in action and what are the learnings that we all can take away. Sound good? All right, let's kick off. So first, there has been a ton of learnings from our customers, our partners, who have really looked at trying out different patterns of value. And the first learning we've had is set up a flywheel, right? Learn from others, learn from our stories that you see on screen here, but set up your own learning mechanisms to pull out where have we won, where have we lost, where did those projects go into production, where did they not, what were the underlying ingredients of, was there technical blockers that we saw, were there business blockers, and that drives a lot of insight. And that mechanism and flywheel is the best way to try out some of our agentic and generative AI models, right? Think about multimodal analysis of architectures. Think about summarization of business patterns of value. So we gave that a run, and what we landed on is something like this, right? So this is our latest snapshot from about November-ish. That snapshot has evolved. And we started to look at it from a taxonomy standpoint. The first taxonomy was on the right, use case categories, pretty well understood, horizontal plus vertical patterns on what were meaningful for the customer. Unsurprisingly, things like summarization and customer self-service still rule the roost. And on the left-hand side, we started to see some common one-to-many, or many-to-one rather, building blocks or technical building blocks that form these patterns of value. Again, building an assistant, external assistant or internal assistant, defined by building your own Copilot-like entity, is by far the top one as we start to engage internal and external customers. Summarization represented by chat with your data, but we started to see agentic workflow processing or driving common AI platform components being very quick rising patterns, if you will, and you don't see kind of the quick risers in this view per se. So that's one. Next, what we saw from the most successful customers was how they scaled. And there were three ways to scale, right? It started off with, what is that golden use case that is going to drive intense business value in the customer environment? That is hard to do, right? It is really difficult to find something that can really drive that. The second one was taking a fairly well understood use case and scaling it across as many departments and processes as possible. Great, good scale strategy. But the most successful customers we saw were really driving different types of architectures, different types of patterns, whether it was knowledge mining on the back end of the customer care cycle, or it was business workflow management on procurement, or more recently with the advent of reasoning models, starting to get into core business areas. How do you start to transform a chemical reagent process using O1 at the time? To really start to determine outcomes when it comes to recycling wastewater, as an example. So how do you start to build out different patterns? Then, over the last 3 to 4 months, we've been able to tackle a very important problem. As I spoke to CIOs and CXOs, what they would say is, look, how do we get to the stacked value that is double digit across the organization? And going back to those scale mechanisms, trying to chain together value across different parts of the businesses is hard. It's key, but it's hard. What the advent of agentic AI and agents allows us to do is to stack and cluster those areas of value together, okay? And the learning has been really, as we think about identifying these business processes or business scenarios, how do we move from just making the decision on build, buy, extend on all those elements of the process, understanding what envisioning of the process looks like, and then using the right tools, and we saw a lot of them this week, on how we start to transform those. Okay? Now, tied to this, it also helps unlock an important conversation on the vectors of business value. And the most common one to say, hey, look, are we reducing cost in the equation? And the answer is no, that's not the only one, right? At a broader scale, it's really around increasing productivity. It could be better compliance. It could be better collaboration. It could be security, turnaround times, better reach and engagement of customers, right? And so it really depends on the vectors of value that are critical, that are being unlocked by that particular business process. So to kind of like close out this first section, we've kind of summarized some of these questions around the 4 buckets that we've all seen a few times this week around the broader dimensions of frontier AI transformation, which can span from the one on the top right. Are you automating these on key processes that are internal customer-facing or for mobility? It could be how do you enable your customer-facing teams on AI to better serve your end customers? It could be proactively gain insights, right? Because agents are so now critical to get the right insights that you need without having to set up complex Power BI reports and complex queries necessarily. And then finally, are you empowering the development organization? Agentic DevOps is by far one of the most clearest benefits around agentic and generative AI. So are we fully taking advantage of that? Great. All right. So as a quick whistle-stop tour on patterns, let's get into a little bit of the how, right? So as we started to think about the value chain, or what is the journey of value a customer kind of sees for AI at scale, it was very clear that roadblocks and challenges didn't just exist at the end of that story. And then we've seen some of the challenges around, let's say, POC to production. It really is in every part of that journey, right? Is how do you find the right scenarios and processes? How do you assess and prioritize those? And number 2, like, how do you actually have the right foundations? So what we've come up with is a set of learnings around 3 components. The first one is, how do you build the right product, if you will, right? And how do you go in there to start to look at meaningful AI scenarios, right? Or these apps that matter, as we call it. People and processes are critical. So what does the new world of an AI center of excellence look like? And how do we make it a center of acceleration, right? And that really helps enable transformation across the board. Number 2, we get stuck on a lot of core foundational elements like security, networking, data, right? And so it's having the right foundations becomes critical, but in an agile way. Customers don't want to go divert into an 8-month data transformation project and only come back to agentic transformation or AI transformation after. And finally, how do you have the right building blocks of scale? So let's unpack that a little bit in each of these areas. So the first one, as I was referring to, is this concept of apps that matter, is patterns that we have seen repeated over time and pivoted not to just what's meaningful for that customer, but what is core to that customer's industry, right? That lends itself to transformation. And we've started off with a core pack of these. And let's take actually a look on how this works. I'm going to take financial services, for example. This is all on Partner Central now, right? So it's called a guided envisioning and apps that matter. Here's kind of the 7 assets. We're going to double click into the financial services one right now. And what it starts to look at is, hey, these are the top frontier AI solutions around, let's say, FSI. For each one, let's take loan processing, for example, and double click on, hey, what are the challenges that we've learned? What is the solution pattern that has resonated the most? What are the business outcomes involved in that? Who are the personas that you can go after that are the buyers around it? And how do you drive those outcomes? What does that typical process look like? This can absolutely be customized using research or using conversations with the customer. But then what could be a key business architecture pattern for an agentic transformation of that? So we'd love to get your feedback on it. Please reach out and share what we might be missing or areas where it might be useful for you. But absolutely take a look at this. So that's one. Next, I want to invite Kirill over to tell us a little bit about the envisioning process and workshops. So tell us about that, Kirill.
Yeah, thank you, Swapnil. My name is Kirill Kotlyarenko. I'm leading the partner strategy for enterprise partners and for Azure AI. And the popular question that I'm getting is where to start. We have a customer, we have an opportunity. How can we start this agentic transformation journey with our customer? And for that purpose, we've developed 2 workshops that are designed to be executed one after another. One is Agentic Business Envisioning, which is a workshop that will help your customer to identify apps that matter. And then you continue with more detailed, usually like full-day workshop, focused about agentic capabilities for scale. During that workshop, you and your customer will whiteboard a solution, identify an architecture, assess customers' AI readiness, and develop a path to scale those use cases in production. And it's designed to be followed up by a POC or an MVP with AI landing zone that I will cover in a few minutes. Swapnil, back to you.
Thank you, Kirill. All right. So we've talked about patterns that matter or apps that matter. How do you start to have the business conversation, the workshops that allow you to kind of navigate that process? With the workshops, some of the techniques that we've also seen relevant is really thinking about the relevancy of those scenarios and processes for our customers, right? And very simply looking at, hey, do we have the right business impact, and what is the spectrum around it? And here's some kind of qualifiers that we can ask. What is the user take-up, right? And we're going to talk about that in a second, but we may build the best business scenario in the process that's transformed agentically out there, but if our users don't use them, we got a problem, right? Where there is user interaction involved. And so can we kind of vet that upfront, right? Is there a need? Is there a desirability of this take-up? And then finally, technical feasibility, right? Going back to some of the foundations around data, security, there may be certain scenarios that might be high business impact, but require a core set of enterprise data scenarios that might take a little longer to get there, right? So you may want to bump up your priority 3s and the 4s up because these are quicker wins, but still of higher business impact. This is an example of a pattern scorecard that allows you to better view what bucket of AI transformation and how are we doing against it. What are the core metrics? We want to hold those core business metrics consistent and upfront on how are we doing against it, and driving key initiatives on how are we doing around that. Just a simple visualization that really resonates with our customers and teams on how are we tracking against it. Great. All right, next. So that's kind of component 1. We have figured out, generally speaking, what might be the right product that will resonate in that particular business scenario. Next, when we start to build it, how do we build it with the right repeatability? And one of the approaches that we have seen is if we decompose that stack, we'll spend a minute on this. You kind of have your opportunities up top on that transformation. how you realize that is across the 3 areas of the stack. The first one is the patterns that we saw, the technical patterns that we've seen as the common Lego blocks associated with it. You then have a decision to make. How do you build that pattern? Do you build it on low code? Do you build it on pro code? Is there agents involved or is it not? Is there a SaaS? Is there a buy scenario you want to take around it? Maybe it is a process that isn't as core to that business where the customer is happy to pay certain subscription money to go execute it. That's totally fine. It helps better focus both our business leaders and our technical teams on the areas that matter to build out pro code stacks. And then finally, talking about data as a product, and a ton of innovation this week around how Fabric and our modern databases with Horizon DB starts to bring that to life, right? But it's really about how do you pull together those different building blocks, or the Lego blocks, if you will, to build that. So what are we doing about it? Going back to the patterns and the blocks that we saw, we've went out and figured out what's the best technical IP out there in the field, right? That our global black belts, that our field engineers have built. We've packaged it. We have our AI acceleration team that then revamps it into an externalized set of IP that can now be used by everybody, by all of you, by our customers, but not just around functional patterns. It's about non-functional patterns on how you now take those patterns from POC to production. So let's take a quick look on how that works. So on accelerators.ms, if you go there right now, you kind of see a set of accelerators, and there's a whole bunch of them today on it. You could figure out by products and services. You can also look at what the featured accelerators are. Multi-agent, unsurprisingly, very popular. Content processing with multimodality, and then knowledge mining. What you see here is those patterns are also in Foundry, right? So your developers can be in flow. They can start with those templates, and both of those, and this is the new UI, by the way, so you now have to go into the build or discover section, and it's under solution templates, and we see the same multi-agent orchestration flow here as that solution accelerator. And both of them point to this GitHub repository, which has a few consistent sections. It has a solution overview, it has an agentic architecture view associated with it, and a very detailed deployment guide. You can either bring it up very quickly with AZD up and bicep templates, but more importantly, we've tried to make sure that it's conforming to our WAF and CAF standards that will better allow you to hook into your landing zones here as well. So we're super excited with it. Lots of good feedback as we've rolled this out and matured it over the last 12 months or so. There's a bunch of new accelerators out there. Would really love for all of you to give that a run and give us some feedback on what we can do differently there. Right, okay. And then finally, I want to talk a little bit about kind of the landing zone components here as well. And so on the foundational side, Kirill, tell us a little bit about the landing zone pieces that have evolved over the last few months.
Yeah, sure. We've recently released AI landing zone reference architecture to help partners establish that foundation to deploy all the use cases. Let's say you've just completed a POC, you've used one of our great solution accelerators, you've built a repeatable pre-sales offering out of it. But now, usually what you need to do is you need to establish a foundation on the customer side, where you deploy a first use case, and you deploy a second one, deploy a third one, and all on repeat. For that purpose, we've developed, based on our marquee projects, based on our reference architectures, 2 versions of AI landing zone, which acts as an evolution of foundational landing zone for Azure. There is AI landing zone with a platform landing zone. Let's say you start from scratch, and this will be your home for all agentic use cases. But also there is, which is a recommended approach. And also there is AI landing zone without a platform landing zone. Let's say you want to deploy AI use cases separately from other Azure workloads that customer has. That's also possible. It's a recent release, and I strongly recommend you to take a look. Next slide. So also, when you are thinking about driving agentic transformation, it's important to think about operations, because what we see is investing into Gen AI Ops helps to improve the efficiency of model deployment and management of AI models by 40%. And we've developed a 3-step approach for managing the workloads, starting from ideating and exploring use cases, building and augmenting them in a test environment, and then operationalizing, which covers deployment, quota and cost management, monitoring, and staging of your AI use cases.
I just realized, is there anything you want to add on the accelerator, sorry, Kirill, as we think about kind of the partner usage and partner central?
So solution accelerators will help you drive in a lot of MVPs, POCs, pilot deployments. They are based on deployments that Microsoft internal delivery teams were driving for many years. They are actively maintained and updated with latest product enhancements that were announced at Ignite. And this is a great starting point if you want to build a repeatable practice for a certain use case. You don't want to start from scratch. You take that solution accelerator, you modify it for your needs, because it's all open source. You can put your logo in the UI. You can fork it for a specific customer, and it dramatically saves your efforts on building an MVP for your customer. Because again, you're not starting from scratch. You are starting from a very solid foundation based on thousands of lines of code that were already developed by Microsoft.
Totally. No, thank you so much. All right. Okay, let's go to our next section here. I would love to introduce and bring up on stage Mr. Charlie Doubek, and would love to kind of chat with you, Charlie, over the next little bit around how entity data has thought about building their practice and kind of learnings around it.
Well, thanks for having me, Swapnil, and I'm happy to talk about that. So when we started, we really wanted to take a look at ourselves and become that customer zero and deploy agents to really kind of create outcome-based benefit to the company. So I thought it might be good for us to take a look on how we started and then take it from there.
Let's do it. All right, roll the video.
NTT Data is one of the largest business and technology services provider in the world. Our strategy is to deploy AI internally to enhance our own operations and to help clients do the same. We started exploring Azure AI Agent Service to see how we can bring our AI journey to the next level of autonomous AI agents. We are in the process of creating multi-agents. Semantic kernel AutoGen is actually something that we are exploring. Data forms the foundation of every part of AI solution. And now, Azure AI Agent Service in Microsoft Fabric coming together, it is a whole game changer. Data agents allows NTT to actually have conversations, ask very personalized questions about the data. We use it to look at our HR and back office operations to try to understand what is actually happening. We see Azure AI and Fabric bridging the challenges around data, governance, and integration. And more than that, they simplify the deployment in a very reliable and safe way as well.
This is great. You know what I really like about it is this concept of really driving that success internally and then taking it out towards our customers. You know, at Microsoft, we've looked at this intentional motion around being customer zero around those areas. Tell us a little bit more about how you've scaled this out. What are the components that you think about in the approaches?
Absolutely. So to bring it to life, our CTO, 𝗦𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗂 is who Maureen reports into, and she holds our AI Center of Excellence. And then I have a mirrored team that is the customer go-to-market team. And what we did is we built the agents together to get that learning and to work with the Microsoft engineering team. Obviously, at the time, it was semantic kernel and AutoGen, and now it's agent framework. And we now are extending that out to customers and taking the principles that we learned on how we could accelerate, deploy, adopt, and actually go to our board and say, look, this is what we're doing. Our CEO just became our chief AI officer, and he took a very personal, look at what we were doing and gave us really good targets we could work against. So really, that partnership taught us how to go to market, which I'd love to talk to you more about how we do that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And one part of it is the what, but the big one is the how, right? Like that how of scaling. What are the people, the process, the technology elements? So if you want to share a little bit about how you've approached that journey.
Yeah, so when we first started looking at deploying agents at scale, we launched something called Agentic AI services back in March. And that particular product was built on the foundation of AI Foundry and Copilot Studio Power Platform. And it was when we had single use case agents. And now we have multi-agent models. We're looking at observability. So what we had to do is pull this all together in a packaged process that allowed our customers to leverage our expertise and scale with the technology. So we could actually take a look at what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely.
So essentially, we came up with our Agentic AI Factory. And not only are we using this for our own projects, but our customers' projects and our partners' projects. So we help partners scale by giving the expertise and the additional expert help that we get from Microsoft and allowing them to scale globally as well. So within this package, what we take is an idea, and we look at the cost. Should it be pro code? Should it be low code? You could have a domain expert in front of that, let's say an expert in finance or an expert in insurance, for example, or you could be directly with the customer, and the customer is giving us their problems, and we're looking at, okay, this is how we would engineer these use cases. Then we quickly move to production, and we start looking at, okay, we built the model. Now, how are we going to deploy it? But the most important piece that we never miss is how we manage it. Because you're looking at indeterminate models, you have to keep an eye on them. So when we saw the announcements this week, especially with Control Plane and how we can actually take a fleet of agents and manage them, we have some customers that are already up to 100, 200 use cases. Now I can manage a fleet and add red teaming and evaluators. So what we did is we packaged all of this in the factory, and we can build models in the customer's environment. So a good example of this is Akancha on our team was working with an insurance company, and she essentially came up with different models that would help with their business goals, put them into the factory, worked directly with the customer, and started building an AI Foundry to start with, because we had to use Fabric and we had to move things together. We have Ankit Mishra on my team, who worked with a retail company that we had on stage on Tuesday, who built autonomous IT agents for them, and started to deploy it so 28,000 staff can talk to the agents, and we can automate the IT processes behind that. So again, this is the factory, how the factory works, but we just don't go away. We stay with the customer and make sure it's working, make sure the models are being upgraded, and leveraging things like Fabric, we can actually pull data out of current sources without having to wait for a data transition. So really, really helps us.
Oh, that's wonderful. I want to actually go back to, I was fascinated by this concept. I feel like your CEO becoming the chief AI officer, and it drives to an important point around and learning around driving the right priority and business value. And so I'd love to kind of understand your learnings around how have you navigated that conversation on business value upfront? How do you secure the buy-in from the right leaders in the organization?
Yeah, so both internally and externally, what we try to do is we call it high concept AI. Instead of looking at use cases and individual agents, what are you looking to achieve? Is it cost savings? Is it changing a process? Is it looking at old like SaaS models that you want to revolutionize? Do you want to stop with kind of app development and move to more agentic workloads? And then we take and dissect that into agents, and then deploy the agents with a clear goal of what we're going to achieve. But now with all the things that have been brought out with Ignite, with Agent 365, with Control Plane, with all these kind of things, we can start putting SLAs and SLOs on agents. So not only can we account for the build and structure of the agents, but the output and how well they behave and how well they do their jobs. So that really gives our customers confidence to start building at scale, knowing that there's a partner like us that can actually make sure that everything's going to work.
Totally. You know, one of the, as you think about that process mapping, a common question I get is, hey, look, we don't want to just convert the existing process to agents. We want to fundamentally rethink it, right?
Yes.
What are some of the techniques and approaches on how you've been able to kind of have that conversation?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I think when people look at multi-agent models, they think, well, if you have a model that's highly intelligent, let's just give the model more tools.
Right.
When you look at a complex process, you have to ensure high accuracy. So you might have a multi-agent model where someone is analyzing data, like a fraud detection type process, and then another agent is taking the output of that and doing more with it. And so you're increasing your accuracy across the multi-agent model. With an orchestrator agent across that, then you can monitor the process, make sure the process is working, and you can show your CISO team, your compliance team, that this is how this is structured, this is actually safe, this is actually working. So I think that our agentic AI COE is used to working in this way, and I think what our customers like is they don't come with the baggage. A lot of them are fresh out of university in some cases. They're looking at how you engineer these things differently.
As part of that, I think you hit upon an important point is these things are not static, are they, right? And things change dramatically even in the time when you've launched something from about 15, 20 days out. Things could change. A new model could come out.
Yes.
Your architecture might change as well. And so keeping that close watch on how the evolution of that architecture might look like with a lens of the business KPI becomes really critical.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a customer on stage on Tuesday, Newell Retail Group, and basically they started a project with us where we looked at a model and we started off with 40% accuracy, moved up to 60%. We've got 78% accuracy at the moment. And that is a partnership with them on the training data, but also the monitoring and continuous improvements on the model.
No, amazing. All right. One of the questions was around, we commonly get is, it's a very people-centric approach, isn't it? Like, so how have you navigated adoption when it comes to driving this in production?
Yeah, absolutely. So with adoption, you can look at it two different ways. You have your change management services, adoption packages. You look at programs versus agents, right? But another thing to look at is how you engineer your model. So for example, with our customer I mentioned, when you're at IT and you raise an issue, you're talking to an agent. That is the process. So the adoption is going to be quite high. But then some agents are more productivity-based, so then you have to do training, adoption packages, have an OCM practice, and having both of those models is quite good. Also having a very good QA team. So in our factory, we actually build a QA team as part of the service, so that makes sure that the model is actually getting that adoption over time.
Got it. I referred to it a little earlier, and one of the biggest kind of challenges is around data, right?
Yeah.
And how do you really have this access to the right data with the right semantic layer? But there are a lot of challenges, right? This data sits in different shapes and forms and sizes, and it's evolved over time.
Yeah.
How do you balance this notion of serving the right data with the right governance, but then making sure that that scenario is effective and we're feeding, whether the agents, the models, the predictive ML models, the right data?
Yeah, definitely. And we could take a little bit of a look of kind of our expertise around this as well. But I think that one of the things that we have to look at is how is the agent communicating? And also, a lot of our customers are waiting to do things based on data migrations, and they shouldn't, right? There's different things that agents can do that do not require you to go backwards. They can go forward. So working in like Dataverse, for example, with the IT projects, that's something that we're doing where we're just moving forward. But then going back to current data source, we just built a supply chain model with a customer, and there's 4 different data sources. So we have a low-code agent that's interacting with the sales team saying, I need to order something, right? And then you have pro-code agents going into legacy data using Fabric to extract the data and pull into it. And then the last section is kind of third-party partners that customer was working with and how those agents are pulling data from the third-party partners. And so looking at that and engineering that, we had to look at a now and then a future state as well. And we do have a data migration team that's going to help that customer, but we were able to put agentic experiences into practice already, which obviously with things like Fabric, it makes it possible.
Talking of future state, maybe my last question would be, what's your next 12 months look like? How do you see your AI practice evolving? What are some of the 1 or 2 top areas that you're looking to invest in?
Yeah, I think that for us, we're building a lot of purpose-built solutions that are there to address big problems to get our customers started. We have what we call AI infused, which is where we're building AI in all of our solutions. And then the third place is really partners like the ones that are probably in this room as well, is actually making new partnerships and forging them. And what we did to really accelerate is we built our own dedicated Microsoft practice that we launched about 5 months ago. I report to the head of the practice, and she's basically driving all of the different practices. We have data, security, all the different Microsoft expertise into one area so that I can pull from that and actually start driving some real change in our customers. So it's a combination of pulling those assets together and driving new routes to market.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, Charlie.
No
really
problem.
appreciate your insights here. Appreciate you
Thanks,
coming
Swapnil.
by.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. With that, let me invite over Kirill. Why don't you take us through the next section in closing?
Yeah, thank you, Swapnil. To make it all a reality, to help your customers with implementing AI Center of Excellence, AI COE, to help you deliver more AI use cases, we developed a comprehensive AI COE guidance across 5 pillars of AI value: business strategy, technology strategy, applied AI experience, organizational and cultural aspects of AI value, and of course, AI governance. All that content is available to you today, and please take a look and see how it can be applied to your AI practices. And as a wrapper to everything we've said, next slide, please. As a next step, so you are delivering these workshops, you are driving a lot of POCs, you are helping customers with implementing AI COE. And to support you with all these efforts, earlier this year, we've launched Azure Accelerate, which is an initiative that is designed to fuel transformation through our partners. It supports everything we've covered so far in the session. It has funding across all stages of AI transformation, starting from pre-sales, following to deployment. And this is your access to funding, access to Microsoft experts, such as Cloud Accelerate Factory experts, to help you drive more deals, close you more AI transformational engagements, and of course, make your customers happy. On that, next slide. We are happy to answer any questions you may have, and please complete the survey. Tell us, how did we do?
We do have a few minutes, so happy to take questions in the room. We're going to hang out here as well, but I think there's a mic we can walk around, but happy to have a conversation in any of the areas. When is my flight back? Any other areas that we could share that we haven't touched on or go deeper on? No? All right. Well, maybe? Yes, we have one.
How should we think about all these tools for different customer sizes? I have seen here in the event a big focus on SMB and medium-sized businesses, and on the other hand, on enterprise. Is all these applicable only to enterprise from your perspective?
It's such a great question, and maybe as we think about our different segments, right? We've seen customers, in a way, it's kind of breaking the norms, if you will, of typical segmentation. Is what I would frame it, in the sense that AI and generative AI has been a great leveler, right, in a way. And that's kind of what I've had a lot of conversations on. It's no longer just the realm of larger customers with large technical teams out there that can take advantage of it. It actually has unlocked acceleration from a lot of different customers and different journeys, if you will. And so with that said, we've seen in the mid-cycle, I think it was your question, we've kind of seen the software scale-ups. We've seen industry companies in that segment as well, that they're driving it. And in a way, they've also seen this as a great impetus or a catalyst to drive areas of transformation that may not have been easily accessible in those areas, such as changes of business model and such as well. Surprisingly, we're seeing actually some of the more regulated industries, healthcare and banking and finance, do a lot of work around generative AI as well, which was very different from what we saw in the cloud a few years ago there as well. And so I would say our aspiration is to have tools that any of our customers and sizes can actually take up. There is both as a result of it, we need to then span the stack, and that's kind of the story you saw this week around the ability to then move from low code to pro code, right? We can now set up these agents in Foundry, and you can call them in Copilot Studio. Vice versa, if there's Copilot Studio, you can actually have an MCP head that Foundry agents can connect to as well. And so we've seen not just as a customer statement, but what we were talking to Charlie about is it's actually a scenario statement. The scenario evolves and matures over time as well. And our tooling and our assets need to evolve with it. And so there's a lot of product truth that's being developed, and you saw a lot of it this week. But equally, the aspiration is absolutely to have it apply to that broader spectrum of customers. Hopefully that helps.
And to add to that, everything we've covered fully applies to enterprise customers. Any size of what we call an enterprise. It can be strategic enterprise customer, mid-size enterprise customer. It's based on the challenges that enterprise customers may face when they try to implement AI and agentic AI in their environments. It also may apply to SMB customers if they have a certain level of AI maturity already. So the concept and framework was designed to be very inclusive and cover most segments. But we started from enterprise and went down to smaller customers as well.
That's a great point. I think as you'll see some of the apps that matter packs, some of them are verticalized, if you will, but then equally we want to continue to invest in the cross-solution patterns out there as well. Maybe one question back for the team. Oh, go ahead. Akshay?
We'll repeat your question for the audience. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, so I work as a consultant in Supersteria, and we are building a lot of agents for our clients. And it's kind of easy to start building these proof of concepts and prototypes for our clients, but what is challenging is to make them scale.
Totally.
And it's not about the technology. It's in the end, we have to go to a CFO or some other financial role and they ask us, hey, when do I earn money or when do I save on this? Could you elaborate on if you have frameworks or how do you do those measurements to convince the financial people to actually accept it? Because if they can see that it's a positive return, they will accept it, but it's hard to explain. So they don't care too much about the cool technology or the business case. They just want, when do I earn or when do I save money?
Yeah. Yeah, great. I would love to. Charlie, did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah,
I would love to jump in.
Really, we had an interesting customer that had a very strict mandate to utilize generative AI and AI for cost reduction. And so to help convince them, we worked on kind of the biggest gains that we could possibly get and what the design of the model would do to help us to make the financials more palpable. That customer had a 3-month delivery time, and we saved them $5 million in since delivery. And that was mainly by looking at old platforms we could take out and things that don't need to be around anymore post-agentic. So it's not always about productivity and like efficiency. It's also about transforming those more heavier processes that could have a better return.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think there've been different approaches and tactics, right? So one of it is very much, and this is going back to the business value slide that I was talking about, where cost takeout is not the only outcome, right? It's really around how is it helping customer interaction, engagement, stickiness, and given kind of the intensity of external facing patterns that we have seen, that becomes really core. How do you provide a holistic customer experience that drives brand loyalty and customer loyalty becomes very important to customers. Others is around really thinking about connecting processes that are not connected, typically connected today, right? So increasingly, this is a pattern where if you look at the retail world, thinking about, Thanksgiving, Black Friday is coming up over here, right? So how do you look at that moment or engagement that spans from, hey, there's a demand spike, what are the products that are required that sits in the demand planning world that translates to there's a very clear logistic supply chain set of processes that need to kick in to fulfill that demand. But then going back to elements of, well, we may need temporary workers for the period of 15 days to go serve it. They have to go be hired, which sits in the HR domain. Is there kind of an automated way we can bring them to the table, onboard those workers, and then have them ready for actually execution of that? So you kind of start to connect different elements of that value chain that the processes may be disconnected, but now you can actually have reasoning across that to drive it as well, right? There's other examples such as driving innovation lab through agents, which is interesting, where the process of innovation vetting takes long, right? Where there's a lot of ideas on the front end of the funnel, but your innovation team might be really low. So we actually had a manufacturer run a agentic innovation lab where it would do a core set of vetting against regulatory norms on the manufacturing side, which could disqualify a big chunk of those innovation ideas based on those regulatory requirements. And so what was coming to the innovation team was pre-vetted areas that can conform, and they don't have to worry about that part. Otherwise, you may have vetted innovation ideas with business cases that fail later on as well. So those are just a couple of examples on how they're rethinking the value chain and how do you build those areas of value there as well.
I also want to add that in apps that matter solution packs that Swapnil shared earlier, there are KPIs for every industry that are suggested if you want to implement that use case. So everything you do is measurable. You start from business envisioning workshop, you identify use cases, and you identify KPIs for every use case. And maybe you start with use cases that are more measurable, that will show better impact for the company. So we have that knowledge baked into those apps that matter solution packs. So I strongly recommend you to take a look.
All right.
Thank you.
On that note, I think that's our time. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and have a wonderful trip back wherever you're located. And thanks for joining us at Ignite.
Thank you.